Hello everyone and welcome to Walk the Parks. My name is Blake. Today we are going to go on a full hike in Goblin Valley State Park to a place called Goblin's Lair. Basically I just showed the sign you'll see along the way as well as a map. Now this hike is starting at the edge of the main campground it's like the main vista at the Valley of the Goblins. And this hike kind of has everything. First, as you can see, there's some restrooms. There's also some restrooms on the other side of the campground, which is pretty cool. And we're actually going to be on the Carmel Canyon Trail. You can do the Carmel Canyon Loop, which is pretty cool. I mean, honestly, it's really hard to go wrong in this park. It is absolutely amazing. Goblin's Lair is fantastic. I would say such a cool hike. I mean, there's not too much effort you need to put in for incredible rewards. You get these kind of views the whole way, and then you end with like a scramble into a slot canyon called Goblin's Lair, and it's very appropriately named. And I felt so lucky. I feel like with the clouds kind of being ominous on me the day I went, it was just absolutely fantastic. I love this hike and I love this place. If you are debating at all, kind of should I visit Goblin Valley State Park in Utah, I would absolutely say yes, you should go check it out. First, I just want to chat about the Valley of the Goblins. That's where we just were. That's where this trail starts off the parking lot. And it's also absolutely fantastic. So if you kind of look around at the view we're looking at right now, those little things are called goblins. I guess some would call them hoodoos. And hoodoos are kind of something similar you'd see in Bryce Canyon National Park, but they're kind of smaller, and here they're called goblins. And what's cool is that in the Valley of the Goblins, there's no official trail. You can just walk. So this is really cool for families because you can kind of go and explore, and little kids would love that. And it's kind of good for all ages, really. You can kind of go and just stay close to the parking lot if you want to and explore the goblins. Or there's actually 3 full valleys of the goblins. So you can go to the third, or just kind of third valley, or go farther and explore more. Absolutely awesome place. Now, as you can see here, the trails... First off, they're awesome. I feel like just somebody, like if you're used to going to national parks and you come to Goblin Valley State Park, you'll just notice the trails are a little different. I think it's maybe a different mindset, or whoever just set this park up, they just had a kind of a cool view. It just seems like the trails are a little bit different, and they are just awesome. Maybe, again, it has to do with just what a unique kind of geological site this whole park is. But the trails are super cool. So as I said, there's the Valley of the Goblins, which you can just kind of explore on your own and do as you wish, or you can take the trails. There's also a really awesome slot canyon just outside the park called Little Wild Horse Canyon, and that's also amazing. I would highly, highly recommend that. I did make a video if you want to check it out. I actually made a couple videos. One shows the full loop because you can do like an 8-mile loop of Little Wild Horse Canyon and Bell Canyon, or I also have a video that just shows like the narrow section. So if you're thinking about coming to this area and you have a little bit of time, I would highly recommend checking out that hike as well. And that's also really cool because you can get access to a slot canyon and there's nothing technical about it, no ropes, no equipment needed. You can kind of just walk right into it, and you can even get to the trailhead with a 2-wheel drive vehicle. It's paved the entire way. Just the parking lots are unpaved. So as you can see, this hike is so cool. We kind of remain on the ridge line for this first section. I'm going to go out and check out this little viewpoint to the right just to get a cool view. And basically we're going to kind of loop around on the other side of this wall, of this canyon wall, or these mountains, or whatever, this kind of formation that's right in front of us. The actual trail drops down to the left, but like I said, we're going to kind of go straight out here. And I would be extremely cautious. I was here for a small portion of time when it was raining, and this kind of turns into a goopy, slippery mud that is not the most fun to hike in, especially if you have to go up hills. It kind of cakes onto your boots, your sneakers, or whatever you're wearing. So be careful there. Also be careful going out and stuff like this. As you can see, the edges are pretty exposed. you could fall, but look at these fantastic views. Another thing to notice so far in the video is there's really no people. I did run into some people on this hike. I did in kind of the evening. One thing to be careful of is, even though it's really cloudy here, this area in particular is just known for being spectacularly clear, which can be awesome because there's not a cloud in the sky, and that's really common, but it can also be extremely hot. It can be over 100 degrees in the winter, and as you can see, there's almost no shade at all. So again, the trails are kind of unique, and you kind of think like, where does this trail go? And you'll notice here there are some little posts that have arrows on them. You can see one in the frame now. So sometimes in a confusing area, you can kind of look for this. There is a portion of the trail that I feel like I might have gotten slightly off trail that I'll try to point out as we get a little bit further along in the video. So do be careful, and then make sure to look at a map. I mean, even just the basic map that I included at the beginning of this video can be extremely useful to think like, where do I go? And as I said, the general direction of this hike is we're going to kind of just go around, like what's kind of straight and to the right of us. We're going to go around that and then go up into Goblin's Lair. Absolutely beautiful place. And why would you watch this video? I think there's three main reasons. Number one, I kind of hope to, with my videos or with a lot of them, to kind of start where guidebooks and apps leave off. I'm just showing you the entire hike. So if you are interested in coming here and what it's like, you can either kind of skim through it or listen to my information that I go through about the hike, and you'll kind of have a better idea of what to expect. Second, there's a ton of people who will probably never visit Goblin Valley for a whole bunch of reasons. So hopefully this video will be a better kind of virtual visit, right? So you can kind of see what it's like and not just have a 2 or 3 minute overview or like a blog style thing, but actually see what a whole trail is like. Lastly, I think it can be for background viewing. If you're at the gym on a treadmill, or if you are on some other piece of exercise equipment, you could watch this video. Also, maybe just have it on in the background. I'll keep a lot of my videos on in the background muted and just kind of look up, and it's just kind of fun to watch, like, a video of going through nature and just on the trail the whole time. So those are 3 reasons I think people might watch this video. If there are other ones, please let me know. So now we're kind of dropping down. As you can see, there's another post to kind of guide us. And these trails are pretty unique. I mean, this whole area of the country, the Colorado Plateau, which is all of this area in southern Utah, I mean, really super western Colorado, northwestern New Mexico, and then northern Arizona, including the Grand Canyon, is all part of the Colorado Plateau. And that's kind of the whole area of the country that looks like Mars almost, is how I like to think about it, with all the red rocks and slick rock and unique things like that. I absolutely love it. I love this geological feature. It's absolutely beautiful. So we did see a sign when we came into the park, and as you can see, some of these trails aren't like the most obvious, like they're just kind of into the side. And as I said, like, water can definitely cause an issue. Like if you're going the other way up this hill, it might be kind of tricky. But look at all these beautiful formations. Absolutely amazing. So happy to relive it with you guys. I watched these two and I'm just like, oh man, I remember being here, and it's just kind of spectacular how beautiful it is. And I am using like just a fairly basic like DJI action camera. And it's really cool that it shoots in 4K and kind of captures such an awesome shot, and I really just have it kind of strapped to my upper chest. So pretty amazing. And I like to rewatch it. I'm not trying to just gloat. I'm right there. But anyway, so when we first started the hike, there was a sign that I stopped on, and you can kind of rewind and read it yourself, but I'm going to read it aloud right now. It says, "History of the San Rafael Swell. For thousands of years, people have left their mark in the San Rafael Swell. A nomadic hunter and gatherer people came to the area during the Archaic period, 8,000 to 1,300 years ago. Barrier Canyon-style rock art panels are the few remaining traces of this culture. The Fremont people followed farming and hunting until approximately 1200 AD. Ute and Paiute groups came after. The old Spanish Trail a trade route between New Mexico and California, brought explorers and traders to the area in the 1800s. Woolen goods were traded for horses and burros. You may catch a glimpse of the descendants of wild horses left behind. In the 1950s, the threat of nuclear war brought uranium miners to the San Rafael Swell. Today, prospector cabins, abandoned vehicles, and old mines like Hidden Splendor and Lucky Strike are remnants of this dynamic time. Did you know you can see Barrier Canyon-style rock art and abandoned prospector cabins in the Temple Mountain area? Pretty cool. So on my trip, I did not see any rock art in this park, but always keep an eye out. You'll be surprised. Like a lot of places, if you just kind of really look carefully, there's a lot of cool rock art. I've read of that a lot in this kind of greater area, but I've never seen any in this park in particular. All right, so here is an intersection that we're coming up to. And when I did this, I did it as a big loop. I started at the campground and then came here, went to Goblin and Goblet's Lair, and then went up to the visitor center, and then from there took a different trail back to the campground. So you can either do a loop right there, and that'll bring you back to near the start of the trail for the Carmel Canyon loop. I have done that in the past. I did not do that on this trip and film it, though. So this area I kind of got a little bit confused. You can see with the cloud, there has been a bunch of rain in somewhat recent time, and a lot of these trails I found around these areas can be a bit more tricky to navigate after a rain because you don't have quite as many footprints to follow, and it can kind of, I don't want to say wash out, but it can kind of fade out some of the trails. Like here, it's pretty well defined though, and we can see an arrow that points us forward. It can also be tricky because if you look, like we're on the trail right now, but to the right, when you're in a wash, it kind of looks similar. So just something to keep in mind. But again, also just the map gives us the basic idea that we're kind of going to go straight ahead-ish and then just go around the other side of this wall of beautiful desert terrain. So as I said, I mean, some of my general takes on this park, there's some really unique and cool trails to explore. It's worth giving it a day or two. A lot of the stuff is super family friendly too. Maybe the Goblin's Lair is maybe a little bit less family friendly. There is some scrambling at the end that you'll see. But the Valley of the Goblins itself is super family friendly and awesome. The campground is really cool and scenic, and it provides like shaded picnic tables at every site. Can be kind of tricky to get a site here. It's most beneficial to come here in either spring or fall. In the summertime, it kind of gets too hot, and as you can see, you're really not going to get any shade whatsoever. All right, so here is another intersection. So when I did this hike, when I came back, I went up towards the visitor center and then to the campground and I did the full grand circle of the park, which was really cool. The Entrada Canyon Trail was also very cool. That leads from the canyon up to the Valley of the Goblins. There's also some mountain bike trails in the park as well, but you can't take this. So here there was the sign, and then this is where I think I'm a little bit off trail. Like I'm not 100% sure if I'm on or off trail. Like there's a bunch of footprints and things, and there's even footprints down here, but I don't think this is the actual trail. I think the actual trail is to the right of this, so keep that in mind as you go. And when I get off trail, my goal in this area is to kind of tread as lightly as possible. The best thing we can do is try to leave no trace or as little trace as possible when we're going on these hikes, particularly if you go off trail. But so try to do our best. And like I said, there were a bunch of footprints, so I was kind of like, well, is this really the trail? And then I was kind of surprised that it fades out this much. I think I found it a little bit better on the way back. Maybe also one of those areas where the trail does kind of disappear here, but I think there's a slightly more pronounced trail to the right. And my hat goes off to trail builders and maintainers in this area because it's very challenging. And I understand the challenges they're up against because you don't necessarily want to have markers every 3 feet on the trail telling people where to go, because that kind of ruins the wilderness experience. But you want to have enough so people stay on trail, and it can be kind of tricky, as I said, especially after a rainfall, because it kind of washes away all those footprints, and you can kind of think like, is this a trail? Is that a trail? So anyway, I think now I'm kind of crossing back, and then now we're back onto the main trail. And as you can see up ahead, there is a marker. So as I said, all the trails are really cool here. The Valley of the Goblins is cool, and you have that slot canyon right outside of the park. So certainly worth spending a day or two in this general area. There's also some other slot canyons like that are more advanced. I think one of them is called Crack Canyon. You might want to research that on your own. I have not done that yet, but I've heard it's really cool. And again, I'm a little bit more advanced. All right, so now we're kind of on the other side of this beautiful wall. Look how fantastic that is. And as I said, it's so common in this area just to have super bluebird skies, so I kind of felt lucky. It's kind of different and kind of had an ominous feel with the dark clouds overhead. I was doing this in the evening too, and I kind of felt all alone. I am about to run into some people on this trail, but I remember just being completely alone out here and thinking, it was a really magical time when I was hiking this. I just thought, this is awesome. I felt all by myself. I felt like I was on a big adventure. I did see some people, but I was by myself in the Goblin's Lair itself, which is really cool. All right, so now I'm going to go over some general information, and the vast majority of this is from the website. So just want to read this, and hopefully it'll be informative. So the discovery of the park. Cowboys searching for cattle first discovered secluded Goblin Valley. Then in the late 1920s, Arthur Chaffin, owner-operator of the Height Ferry, and 2 companions were searching for an alternate route between Green River and Caneville. They came to a vantage point about a mile west of Goblin Valley and were awed by what they saw. 5 buttes in a valley of strange-shaped rock formations surrounded by a wall of eroded cliffs. In 1949, Chafin returned to the area he called Mushroom Valley. He spent several days exploring the mysterious valley and photographing its scores of intricately eroded creatures. The area was acquired by the state of Utah and in 1964 was officially designated a state park. Goblin Valley State Park is a showcase of geological history. Exposed cliffs reveal parallel layers of rock bared by erosion. Due to the uneven hardness of sandstone, some patches resist erosion much better than others. The softer material is removed by wind and water, leaving thousands of unique geologic goblins. Water erosion and the smoothing action of windblown dust work together to shape the goblins. Bedrock is exposed because of the thin soil and lack of vegetation. When rain does fall, there are few plant roots and little soil to capture and hold the water, which quickly disappears in muddy streams without penetrating the bedrock. And it's rain like that that causes flash floods. A lot of the soil around this whole greater area is not very permeable. It doesn't absorb much water. So basically all the water that falls kind of funnels into the creek, and that can cause a whole ton of water to arrive at once, causing flash floods. I like this hike too because you really feel like you're remote here because you're just on the other side of that kind of wall that you see from the main viewing point of Goblin Valley. And there's not many people around. And it's also really nice because it's pretty flat. This park was open to the public as a state park in 1964, and the park elevation is approximately 5,000 feet. So 5,000 feet, if you are from sea level, you have the potential to certainly feel the altitude. So make sure to go a little bit easy on yourself, drink lots of water, stay hydrated, and again, be careful of the sun. Even though a lot of people can be like, oh, I love the sun, it can be just a terror if you're not used to it and it's 100 degrees outside. So certainly be careful, wear sunscreen, drink water. One of the things about this area too is it's so dry that when you're sweating, you don't necessarily notice how much water you're losing. Like in other more humid places, you'll just be drenched, whereas here you might not be wet at all, but you can still be losing a ton of salt. So make sure to, get your electrolytes or your liquid IV or salt however you can. Not the time to skimp on salt when visiting these areas. All right, so activities. Goblin Valley State Park allows visitors to explore and meander among the goblins. 5 established hiking trails, bike trails, and the 3 trailless valleys offer a unique and spectacular view of the canyon. There are several trails. One of them is called Caramel Canyon, a 1.5-mile moderately strenuous loop leading from the parking lot area to the desert floor. Along the way, visitors see Goblin Valley from different perspectives. Optional hike to Molly's Castle Overlook. And we did take that trail for a little bit in this video, and then we kind of turned off to Goblin's Lair, which is defined as a moderately strenuous 3-mile out and back trail that leads hikers behind the Goblin Valleys for a scramble down into a cave. This hike descends to the desert floor and offers breathtaking views of Molly's Castle and the Gilson Buttes. Exposed and sandy, and requires basic bouldering skills to climb into the lair. And I was reading other places, it's not really a cave. It actually is would be defined more as a slot canyon. I don't know if that starts to get into the debate about a lake versus a pond. I've done enough traveling to learn that even if there is a true scientific definition of what a lake or a pond is, it's not really that well followed. There's huge ponds and small lakes, and there are ponds with an inlet and outlet stream, and there are things called lakes that don't have an inlet and outlet. So who knows where that goes, and maybe that's similar to here. What's a cave? What, especially in this instance, is it a cave? Is it a slot canyon? I'm sure there's an official answer, but I don't know. We'll go with cave since that's what it said on the website. From deposits laid 170 million years ago by a vast inland sea, Goblin Valley State Park was sculpted by forces of nature. Today, thousands of otherworldly stone gnomes inhabit the valley, evidence of this land's unique geologic legacy. These uniquely shaped goblins lure visitors to join them in their desert playgrounds. Dark sky. Goblin Valley has one of the darkest skies on Earth. Virtually free of any light pollution from populated areas, Goblin Valley State Park is a certified dark sky park and offers unparalleled views of the Milky Way. Be sure to spend some time exploring the different constellations and enjoying the night sky. And yeah, I can certainly vouch for that. This area is amazing. You really are in the middle of nowhere. There is a town, I guess Green River is the closest town to the north, which is at least an hour away. And then there's a small town called Hanksville, which does have quite several hundred people, I would estimate the population. And there are a couple gas stations and a hotel and a couple restaurants and maybe an RV park, but still extremely small town. So the light pollution here is minimal, and it is awesome. As you can see now, we're kind of entering a little bit deeper sand, so make sure to pack your patience. Sometimes sand can be a little bit frustrating to walk on, kind of pulling your ankles different ways, so keep that in mind. Absolutely beautiful though. So as far as geology, Goblin Valley is at the southern end of the San Rafael Swell, a massive anticline that was uplifted about 40 to 70 million years ago. The goblins, known scientifically as hoodoos, were formed through the gradual erosion of Entrada sandstone, which was deposited about 170 million years ago when the area was a tidal flat situated next to an ancient sea. As sands washed in with the tides, the surrounding area eroded into the sea, depositing silt and clay. These components are layered to form interbedded sandstone. Nature sculpts the goblins' unearthly shapes from the interbedded sandstone through a process called spheroidal weathering. Because these siltstone and shale layers are softer than the more resistant sandstone layers, they dissolve more quickly. As vertical cracks appear, the sandstone's sharp corners are smoothed by chemical decomposition and erosion, forming the rounded caps and curves of these otherworldly formations. The red cliffs beyond the valley are going through this same process and will gradually expand the Goblin landscape over the next few million years. Note how the younger, lighter colored Curtis Formation caps the Entrada sandstone. Plants and animals. Vegetation is limited to hardy desert species, which can endure blowing sand and hot, dry conditions. Plants have adapted by reducing the size of their leaves and producing waxy coatings so that they lose less water through transpiration. Visitors will likely encounter Mormon tea, tumbleweeds, Indian ricegrass, and various cacti. Nearby, at slightly higher elevations, are juniper and pinyon pine. Jackrabbits, scorpions, kangaroo rats, pronghorns, kit foxes, rattlesnakes, and coyotes are found within and near the park. Most animals in the area are nocturnal, venturing out only in the cooler evenings to hunt and forage for food. All right, so we're getting close here. I just want to talk a little bit about where we're going. So there is something called Goblet's Lair. I'm going to put out another video that includes that. And but our main objective here was Goblin's Lair, which is straight ahead. I also noticed that there was or kind of to the right. Like you get here and you're kind of like, where does the trail go? It does say on the sign, like up the hill. And you're like, what does that necessarily mean? Because it is quite steep. But as we're approaching it here, kind of in the more right portion of the screen, you can see that trail going steeply up the hill. I believe that is the proper designated route. I did see some other people later in the hike that were kind of climbing up to just left of center, but I'm not sure. But anyway, there was something at the park entrance. I remember looking at the brochure. You can get a permit to rappel from the top into Goblin's Lair, and that'd be really cool too. I remember thinking it must be a neat experience. But you just have to pay a little bit separate for that, and obviously know what you're doing. It's not like a ride. So here I was kind of uncertain. I was like, which way does it go? It just says go up the hill. Honestly, maybe that is the official trail to the left, because the one to the right that I'm about to go up is quite steep. But who knows? It looked like it was the most used. I don't know whether that was because of water coming down or from the past, but there is another trail that goes up to the left. But I must say, though, I kind of like the adventurous spirit of the park, right? Like they could put up way more signs blocking things off, but they kind of keep things up, leaving the adventure up to the visitor, which I really enjoy. Cool rocks here. And I was also thinking, like, where am I going, you know? I must say, though, when I came down this, it's incredibly steep and really made me think, like, I had to kind of go and scoot down on my butt because it was just so steep and crazy. I mean, the traction was pretty good. I would hate to be here trying to go down this trail in any sort of moisture. It'd probably be so slick and you just slide right down it. But thankfully, it's not super long or anything, but quite steep. Kind of wish I had a trekking pole or something to balance myself. I usually love hiking with trekking poles, but a lot of times on shorter day hikes, I won't bring them. I guess I'm just so used to it from being so lucky to go on so many different, like, super long backpacking trips. So now kind of just taking a look back down, and I'm like, where do I go? But I promise, if you get this far and you're not completely, like, I will not go up this hill, got an attitude, it's pretty fantastic. The Goblin's Lair itself is really cool. And I think this park is completely worthwhile. So as far as the campground, it does feature 24 sites, and there is a group site, and there's also 2 yurts with a centrally located restroom and shower facilities. You can book all of them 16 weeks in advance at the time of making this video, or at the time I looked on the internet for this information. So keep that in mind. I remember it being like super booked too. Like I had trouble. I stayed for one night, and it was kind of tricky to get a reservation. And again, that was during more peak time. So here we are, and I kind of looked around. I'm like, is this it? But this is it, Goblin's Lair. And I would definitely take the kind of warning seriously. Like it does require some scrambling to get down here. A lot of people consider it fun, but a lot of other people might consider it above their ability level. It's certainly above just like a normal trail. Like you're definitely using your hands and feet. I didn't find it too scary or too super exposed. You're not going to be like, oh, I should have a rope or anything like that. But definitely something to keep in mind if you have small children or if you're just a person who might not want to do some intense scrambles. So, very cool area. I love that there's like the kind of openings from above. And I really can picture this just being a goblin's lair or something like that. Keep in mind, lightning danger is severe in exposed locations. A lot of locations are severe. They always say for lightning that you're not supposed to go into a cave. So I don't know if you'll be safe here. Plus, remember, just water could come pouring into there. I don't know what the drainage is like above this, but you don't really want to be stuck in here and then having to scramble your way out. And when I went down here, there was this cool kind of, I don't know if it's a cairn, but someone made like a little spiral thing that you'll see down here for a second. So pretty cool. I was just kind of taking a break for a minute, enjoying. There's also different ways to go. Like, I don't know that I took the easiest way. I feel like from this perspective, over to the right, there was kind of an easier path that I found on the way out. And you may want to do that. So, as always, when it comes to scrambling, make sure, and obstacles in the desert, make sure you're looking around. Sometimes the most ideal choice is not the most obvious, particularly in canyons. A lot of times you come to something that looks really sketchy, and maybe you actually have to go way around and then back down in versus, trying to do something that looks uncomfortable. And as always, remember the kind of main rule of canyoneering, which is don't go down something you can't go back up. Or, the opposite, don't go up something you can't go back down. A lot of times you might climb up something really steep, you get a bunch of traction on some slick rock, and then you turn around and it's like, oh my God, this is so steep and crazy to go down. Make sure to bring plenty of water, at least a gallon per person per day in the summer. Keep in mind, Goblin Valley is remote and rugged area. Use caution when hiking. The nearest hospital facilities are quite far away. I don't even know, maybe Green River has something, or Moab, but even those are just kind of small regional hospitals, so definitely keep that in the back of your head, but I wouldn't let it keep you from exploring. So here's that kind of cool spiral thing I was talking about. Sometimes I think humans, we just can't leave well enough alone, right? And just like, we have to put our mark on everything. But in that instance, I thought it was pretty cool. And this is a really neat place. I didn't hang out for too long. It was kind of approaching sunset, and I wanted to explore Goblet's Lair and then go back. I guess 5:42 is what time my phone says. But I also wanted to go check out some other trails. But really cool area. I would imagine on a hotter day, it would be quite nice to be in here. I'm sure it's a bit cooler than the surrounding area, so that would be nice. But anyway, but sometimes, like a lot of trails around this whole greater area are marked by cairns, which are like piles of rocks. And that's cool, like if you just need it for navigation, but then sometimes people take it overboard and those put thousands and thousands. And while it looks cool, I don't know. It's also just like sometimes humans can't leave well enough alone. Anyway, I'll get off that topic. Not trying to discuss politics or anything like that here. So now I'm kind of just scrambling back up, and we are approaching the end of this video. Would love to hear if you have any comments for me if you went and visited yourself. I really think Goblin's Lair, this is such a cool, unique hike for like the short distance. It's just like 3 miles round trip. You're scrambling into like a weird Goblin's Lair. You had that cool section at the beginning that was on the kind of at the ridge top of a very unique area, and then you also start the hike, or where I started the hike was at the Valley of the Goblins, which is just super fantastic and unique. So a full day might be sufficient if you're kind of on the more fit, more adventurous side. Maybe even a couple days. This place is pretty awesome. There is, if the campground fills up, which it's likely to do in peak season, you should inquire at the visitor center. There is some dispersed camping. I think there's some within the park that you might need a permit for. And it seemed like there might have been some at the kind of surrounding public land around the park too. So I don't like to go too much into rules and regulations because they tend to change. Plus, if I slightly misspeak, I don't want to be burned at the stake too bad. But something to kind of look out for when you go. So I'm going to leave you here just very shortly. Again, just wanted to show what the scramble out is like. I did take it nice and slow in here. And I think I stopped. I think I'm going to stop this video very soon because I was kind of embarrassed. I'll admit to scooting down on my butt, but I don't know that it makes necessarily the best video. So you can see there's a beautiful video here, or excuse me, beautiful view here. And I would assume there's numerous ways to kind of get up top if you're going to rappel down into there. It would be a really cool place to rappel down into just for kind of a beginner slash intermediate rappel if you're into that, looking for that. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed our hike to Goblin's Lair within Goblin Valley State Park. Again, please let me know if you ever go and visit or if you found this video helpful. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.